Hi everyone, it's Heidi M, and I'm back from the virtual room. This time I am joined by author Clarissa Trinidad Gonzalez. Nice to meet you, Clarissa.
Very nice to meet you, Heidi.
Clarissa, you are based in Toronto, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so you are based in Toronto via the Philippines, and you are a writer. And I'm curious about your start in terms of literature work and sort of that fun stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I came to literary writing a little late, but I've always been involved in writing. Like from the beginning, it's always been let's say a natural talent. And, like I won a lot of, like essay contests and such in school, even without really trying. After I finished university, I went into advertising. So I gravitated towards that. Um, yes. I think for a long time, I was ambivalent about, being a writer. Like I tried many things. Like when I immigrated to Canada, I said, okay, I'll try something new. Like advertising's like it's a grinding profession. It's
Yes.
interesting. Dynamic, but yeah, I think you can only do it when you're really young. It wears you down. So yeah, I moved to Canada. In Mississauga specifically in the mid 90s. So I said, okay, I'll try something new. Yeah, I studied fashion design, and I was good at that too. I actually won. I won a competition at the Design Exchange, the Universal Design competition, and I got a job as a designer at one of the Hudson's Bay companies. It's now defunct.
Right.
Um, yeah. So anyway, yeah, that was fun, but let's just say Canada or Toronto isn't like the fashion capital of the world. So like no matter how good you are, it's either you go to New York, you go to Milan, or just
Mm-hmm.
accept it's a shrinking industry in here.
Right.
So anyway, I decided to go back into writing. Yeah, I whatever. I met some people who were in the in the public sector, and said, okay, yeah, we need some writers for special events, correspondence and such. So yeah, yeah, I kind of got back into writing via that. But
Right.
again, it's a practical thing. You know, I don't- and I started writing poetry again. Just as a means of self-expression, I guess, and to you
Sure.
know, eh, just kind of give myself like some creative expression apart from, my day job writing,
Mm-hmm.
which is very, like corporate and official. So I started writing poetry. I enrolled in a U of T continuing education course with Helen Humphreys. We did lots of fun exercises, and I had an amazing group of people in that class. Actually, out of that class, I think three people are published authors. So,
Nice.
yeah, wonderful group. It's one of those, like lightning in a bottle moments. Like, okay, you can never replicate
That's
that
true.
group. So, yeah, I started writing some poetry, and then Helen encouraged us to, do a little more. I did a little short story where, the characters or the proto characters of Celestina and Jose Maria kind of like emerged
Yes.
out of the ether. And, people got really excited about it. They said, like characters were vibrant and larger than life, even in that very short piece. So,
Interesting.
that kind of started it. But yeah, really, yeah. I mean, to be honest, like writing a novel is, like it's hard work, and like everyone has their own method, right?
For
In a way,
sure.
you have to, like learn as you go, learn it on your own. I mean, Helen and my other teachers, they had their methods, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, really for a long time, I didn't really know what I was doing, but what was happening was, I was like growing the characters, exploring the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, yeah, and then life happened, I live in Etobicoke with my wonderful spouse, and you know, we have a daughter. She's 15 years old now. Hard to believe. So, like the writing got set aside for
For a
several
bit.
years,
Mm-hmm.
really. And then COVID hit. So yeah, I mean, before that, my office was like, no, you have to come, you have to come to work, you have to be
Right.
present. When COVID hit, they couldn't get us out of work fast
I
enough.
know,
So,
right?
everybody out, like work from home. So I said, well, I'm going to use this time to, like get healthy, get strong. And, the time I don't use commuting, I'm
Writing.
going to really hunker down on this, on this novel that I've been working on since before my daughter was born, like really
Yeah,
puttering around with.
sure.
So yeah, I mean, so I guess that was like 2 years.
Yeah, for sure. And
So
so, and I was gonna sorry to interrupt. I guess that makes me think of how sometimes that luxury of extra time kind
yes,
of help us kind of work on our passion projects that kind of become this new career perhaps for some people.
perhaps, yeah,
You
perhaps,
know? Did you have
yeah.
any influences for so Celestina's House is the new book that was based on that
Hmm.
short story. I'm following this thread
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah.
Did you have any influences in terms of when you were writing the characters for the story, or what did you draw from for Celestina's House?
Yeah. Well, okay. The stories I like to read are, I don't know. I guess like uh, larger than life stories, and yeah, because in my culture, sort of the natural world, the natural everyday world, and the supernatural, they're kind of, let's just say we have an easy relationship with the spiritual world. So yeah, a lot of that is an influence from my culture, the easy relationship we have with the
Mhm.
spirit world, with God, with angels, with maybe other supernatural, like spirits that are like lurking about that live on Earth.
Right.
And well, I like to read things like Isabel Allende. Yeah, I
Mm.
think the Filipinos have a natural like affinity for the magical realism kind of storytelling because we share that common culture with the Latin American countries and the Spanish
Absolutely.
countries.
I say to people
Yes,
we're almost cousins there.
yeah, that's right. I mean,
Like
it's
that's how it feels. At least with my Filipino friends, that's how it feels. That there's a lot of understanding of certain cultural aspects.
mm-hmm,
Like you said, our relationship to religion, spirit, supernatural, and just our understanding of the world and how we use these sensitivities to deal with big themes in life, whether
right,
it's
right.
happy or not so happy.
Right. Yeah. So, I guess, when Bundern got a hold of the story, they said, oh, it kind of reminds us of Mexican Gothic, a little bit crossed
Oh,
with the House of the Spirits. I mean, I'm fine with that. I love both those works.
yes.
And, it's flattered to be compared with successful authors. Yeah, but really, I'm not going for a particular like style or genre. It's
Hmm.
it's it's the way my family, my parents tell stories.
Sure. Hmm.
Yeah, when they tell stories, like they tell it, it's like the most fantastic, like the craziest thing you've ever heard, and they tell it with a completely straight face. So,
Hmm.
I was, yeah, that's mainly my influence.
Right. And I think that's also why certain stories are appealing because we want to hear stories from different points of view and being told in different ways. So I think that's also what might attract people to stories like yours and other writers of different cultures. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I wanted to ask you, as somebody who's, wanted to be a writer, you kind of segue your way into writing more in the last few years. What does it mean to be part of a literary festival? Like I know you and I connected today because of the Toronto International Festival of
Hmm.
Authors, which is a really great festival for anyone who's, who loves books and all kinds of literary things. But what does that mean for authors that are trying to find their way in the world of literature?
Yeah. Well, first, I'm very honored to be invited. Yeah, honored, pleasantly surprised. yeah, I mean, one of my teachers is in there, so it's like
Mm,
it's a definite honor to kind of share that milieu with her. Um, well, I'm very happy the festival exists because, like to be honest, it's not, this it's not like a profit, like a big profit venture, right? But
mm-hmm,
still, I think if we don't have literature, our society will be so much more impoverished. So,
mm-hmm.
you have a festival like this that, showcases emerging voices as well as, the titans of the industry, the Michael Ondaatjes,
Yes.
um, it's, and it's happening in Toronto. So, I think it's a great thing. And,
Mm,
I think it kind of strengthens our reputation as, one of the cultural, centers of the
centers.
world.
I agree with that, and I also that's what I like about the festival too, in that you could go to big name events, but then you can also go to more intimate events too, where maybe it's not a big theater, but it's in a smaller space, and then you get to interact with the authors a little bit more as an audience member, and also anyone who's kind of a fan of anything that's literature based. So I know for the festival this year you're going to be part of two events. It looks to me like it's all on the same day, September 22nd.
Yeah, it's gonna
Yay! So
be
you're
hectic.
busy one day, so you get to enjoy the festival the rest of the days.
Right.
So let's talk about those events. So the first one I see here is called Finding Spaces of Comfort.
Hmm.
And it talks about you're going to be sitting with Jess Taylor, and you're going to talk about what spaces mean, or if they have a different meaning or deeper meaning in the stories that you tell. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that and how it ties to your book?
Okay. Okay, so yeah, Celestina's house. Well, when I used house there, I used like three layers of the house.
Mm-hmm.
First, it's the house that she was given by her, maternal her wealthy maternal grandfather. And it's sort of a house that's not really wanted by the family because it's haunted by the spirit of the original owner, Celestina's great
Mm,
aunt. So there's that one layer of the house, and then the other meaning of the house is the family, like the House of Windsor.
right,
So so there are all those I wouldn't say curses, but generational sins that have reverberated down her family
sure,
line. Yeah. So there's that. And then house, as in, the person herself, as in, keeping her house in order, being like the ruler of her own house, her psyche.
right.
Okay. Yeah, so in terms of safe spaces and imagination, well, traditionally we, especially where I grew up, I grew up I was martial law baby. So, like first, like 18, 19 years of my life, we were under a dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't all bad. There was family, there was like, humor, friends,
Right.
but, we kind of really knew, we weren't exactly, that free to, speak what's on our minds and had to be mindful of who you associated with, that kind of thing. So, I think we took it for granted that the outside world wasn't like 100% safe. There's no safe
Mm-hmm.
space. Like, my generation, yeah, we did not expect safe spaces
Mm-hmm.
except the family. So, you were told, okay, so the family, so this is your sanctuary, your refuge, you
Right.
know, yeah, this is your safe space. The outside world, just be
Mm,
mindful, it's dangerous. So, yeah, so I guess like the horror element in my story comes from when that expected safe space, that expected sanctuary kind
yeah.
of turns malevolent and betrays your trust.
Right.
So yeah, so yeah, Celestina has to reinvent the idea of home from there. So
Right.
her little nuclear family. Like shatters through a shocking betrayal. So when she inherits or gets gifted this, forsaken, haunted property by her Chinese grandfather, anyway, she grabs the opportunity. She knows it's not the most desirable place, but she looks at it and says, "Okay, I can live here, even
Right.
amongst the ghosts. I will construct my own family. I will construct my own safe space. I will
Mm-hmm.
construct my own life away from that, unhappy place I come from." So
Right.
yeah, that's sort of, where her story starts.
Yes, yes. I'm already intrigued by the book, by all of this so far, but I think that we'll leave it there for folks to pick up the book when it's
All
available.
right.
But so that is for the Finding Spaces of Comfort event on Sunday, and that's at 11:30 for anybody who's catching that. And the next
Mm-hmm.
event is the same day, later in the afternoon, called Rally the Tropes in Horror. So sort of a discussion with another author, G.A. Wilmot, around the horror tropes in books. And do you have any favorites that you can kind of share with me, maybe one or two, in terms of your writing?
Okay. What am I? Well, obviously, I'm partial to like haunted houses,
Yes.
but yeah, but I like it more when the horror is it's like not big monsters, but like if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know whether it's psychological or real, that's how I like it.
Yeah.
Like in yeah, similar to Rebecca, like
Oh,
the house is obviously
you got me
haunted, but
there.
is it haunted by the spirit, or is it like just so saturated by her, by her presence? I guess it's almost the same, right? The effect is
Right.
almost
It's
the
so
same.
true. I like that you mentioned Rebecca because I think it's one work, while it's a book, it's also a movie that is really accessible to any audience. That's my
Right,
opinion, that I think that anybody can pick up a lot of interesting bits in that story. And I do agree with you that sometimes that is the horror that kind of gets under our skin a little bit more because we
right.
don't know where that really comes from, you know?
Yeah, I was actually surprised I got invited to the horror tropes. I said, well, I'm not a horror writer. Like it's a very specialized art, where you
Hmm.
have to like really turn the screw on people and like ratchet up the tension.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I'm that kind of writer, but anyway, happy to participate. Yeah, Andrew Sullivan, the moderator, gave us
Yes,
a
Andrew.
list of tropes to discuss. What did he put there? Like devil dolls and cursed objects, abandoned places, um, Catholicism, actually. Now that's interesting.
Well,
That's
I was
something I
gonna
can speak
say
to. Yeah, yeah,
that is
my
a
novel
trope
was
in
quite
itself.
saturated.
That's my opinion, everyone. Doesn't mean I'm bashing. But I think of those of us who were, I guess, ruled under the Spaniards, who were very much Catholic, that permeates in the arts a lot
It
in
does.
terms
It
of
does.
how it can become almost psychological horror too, right? In the sense of the religion
Yeah.
aspect of things. So we could have a whole class on that, I think,
Oh,
Clarissa.
yeah, 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 certainly. I like to say that, nobody can really outdog the Catholics. It's Yeah, yeah, no, it's a religion that like I don't I'm still practicing albeit imperfectly like like everyone. Every day you ponder death, you ponder, like the resurrection, you
Hmm.
ponder the spirit world.
Sure.
And yeah, and you take the spirit world seriously. Angels, demons,
Hmm. And I think
possessions.
it's, sorry to interrupt. I think it's also for some of us who come from cultures that are mixed with like the indigenous beliefs too.
Mm-hmm.
It's now become part of our society of some people are still practice religion, but you kind of mix the two. And I see that when I've gone back home in Guatemala, for example, like the
Right.
mix of the traditions, and people still sort of go to church. And to me, that's also a valid way of seeing the world.
Yeah, yeah, certainly, yeah. Like the Philippines, it's very much mixed with the folk Catholicism. I'm not sure what the right name is for that, but
Right.
like people, yeah, do pray to, like ancestors, I guess call up like pre-Hispanic spirits that they have like a
Sure.
memory of, and
Hmm.
they also pray to saints.
Exactly.
So, yeah, to me, it just makes it like richer.
Absolutely. It's all about the layers, right? And I think that's,
Yeah,
and I think that ties into what you were saying about Celestina's house in the book and how all of that generational or kind of history that might be in the house becomes part of the history that sometimes haunts us too
right.
in our families, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and I think even if you think you're not a horror writer, there are elements in the writing that maybe are interesting because I think it's an interesting genre in general, what gets lumped into horror these days, because it could just be a really big umbrella where it's not necessarily, like you said, monsters, but it's the different types of psychological events that could trigger someone to experience some kind of terror,
Mm-hmm.
or so there's room, I think there's room in that genre for a lot of discussion about big themes.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad it's not just so formulaic. It's a
Yes.
little more, experimental these days. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Sylvia Moreno Garcia did a lot to pave the way for that kind of genre crossing.
Yes,
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
kudos to her for doing it.
Yes,
I mean,
we're gonna
easier
give her a
for,
plug in the socials for sure. I have her one of her books here. What's it called? Oh, Silver Nitrate. As I look on my shelf, I have Silver Nitrate on my shelf. I haven't read it yet, but it's again because I like that her style can cross lines. And I know from another friend who's told me that they like this type of writing because it also kind of gives them almost like a visual way of
yeah,
um,
yeah, more
like
cinematic, right?
yeah, in terms of the story, how they're absorbing the story, which I think is really really interesting and kind of fun to immerse yourself through a book, and then it's your own imagination that kind of helps you navigate.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to reading that too, because yeah, like I said, I worked in advertising, so yeah, we did quite a lot of that, like film production. So
Mm,
yeah, I think my writing is I've been told my writing's cinematic as well. Like,
mm,
I like to play around with fancy prose when necessary. But
sure.
yeah, when I tell the story, I want people to have sort of a movie in their mind.
Mm-hmm,
To see it like full and alive and like moving,
for sure.
rather than just being like pure, abstraction or cerebral.
That's so true. So speaking of your book, Celestina's House, I think I want to make sure people know that yes, you are at TIFA this weekend, and
Mm-hmm.
the Toronto International Festival Authors runs until I think September 29th. So there are a lot of events to catch. But I also want to do a plug for your book launch so that people know it's coming up.
Thank you. It's on October 5 at the Center for Social Innovation on Spadina, not the Annex 1. Yeah, 19192 Spadina Avenue, October 5. Yeah, doors open at 6 o'clock. It's a free event. It's open to the public. Yeah, come,
Okay,
bring some
excellent.
friends, have some food. I'm Filipino. We always have food.
Yeah, well, yes, thank you. That I will attest to that. I've attended many Filipino events.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
and they'll pack a doggy bag for you too, right? Like they'll pack a baon for you
gotta love
after the
it.
party. Yeah, take this home.
You gotta take something for the road. That's so true.
Yeah.
So that's Celestina's house book launch on October 5th. For anyone who's curious about your writing journey, Clarissa, do you use social media? What is the best way for people to follow?
Oh, okay. I'm on Instagram, so it's at Fierce Pinay, all one word. And I'm also on Facebook, so Clarissa Trinidad Gonzalez.
Okay, excellent. So I'll be sure to plug those and tag those when I share on each respective social media so people know how to find you. Clarissa,
Wonderful.
thank you so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to the Sunday events, but also reading the book.
Okay. Well, wonderful talking to you, Heidi.
Thanks.
Okay.
We'll see
Well,
you Sunday.
bye. Take care. See you there.